What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another video and another review roundup. If you've never watched one of these videos before, it's essentially just like my other reviews, except I squished together a couple of movies or some TV shows that I've recently watched and squeeze them into one video. So today I'm actually going to be talking about two movies that I felt would be really good to squeeze together in a video, because both of them were low budget films that were actually sent to me by individuals who were part of the films themselves. And yeah, that was really awesome. So thank you for the opportunity to those who sent me the screeners for this and wanted me to check out your movies to review it here on the channel. With that said though, as I said to them in the messages that we had back and forth, this is not going to be a situation where I'm going to kind of give a cookie cutter review or kind of, you know, lessen the integrity of my reviews by giving a nicer review if there was elements I didn't like about the films. I did tell them I was going to be completely honest, and so here are my honest takes on these two films. Let's get into this, starting with the film Polar. So Polar's actually been out since 2019, and I was actually sent this film by the main star of the film, Drew Horner. He plays a character named Robin who's just kind of lost in life. This movie overall is a story about an individual who maybe has just gotten lost in drinking and smoking and kind of living in a redundancy in his life. Doesn't really feel like he fits in, doesn't fully feel like he's connected to everybody. Maybe has a lot of dreams or aspirations, but ultimately isn't living up to those and is kind of just lost in his own mind. And so over the course of the film, we watch a lot of really awkward scenes as we have Robin kind of being a bumbling idiot, maybe being the embarrassment, or maybe even just embarrassing himself in the moment when things were going well for him. And overall, the story is about a guy who isn't trying hard enough in a lot of ways, and finally at the end starts to realize that he needs to make a change for the better and start making decisions that are best for him. Ultimately, I'm a little torn on how I feel about this film. There's a lot about it when it comes to that overall premise that I really enjoyed, and then you have Drew Horner giving a really solid performance amidst all that, and all of that really kept me engaged. However, I really wasn't captivated by the story overall. I did feel like it was pretty slow at times. There was an element of feeling like, where is this going? And unfortunately, one of my least favorite things to say about a movie is that it kind of felt aimless at times. Quite frankly, I would have really liked to have seen maybe the first and second act squished into the first act, with the very end of this movie maybe being the middle of this movie. I was really starting to get into this character, starting to feel for him a lot more, and was finally really invested in him by the time the credits started rolling. And ultimately, it just comes down to the fact that I feel like the first section of the film, the first half of the film, just does feel a little bit slow, a little bit aimless at times. It feels like we're going from scene to scene with random characters from scene to scene that we ultimately don't spend a lot of time with, and we don't really get much from, and ultimately don't really serve much in the story. The person that we're primarily focusing on is the character of Robin, and I think Drew Horner does a good job of playing this guy who is, you know, likable to the audience, but you can totally understand how he may be a little obnoxious or unlikable to those who he's around, and ultimately you can understand how he's gotten himself to this situation. But as the film progresses, especially with some of the stuff that happens in the third act of the film, yeah, there's a lot to really enjoy about his character, and you do sympathize with his character, though again, I really wasn't captivated by the overall story leading up to the end, nor was I really captivated by a lot of the performances and things that were going on. Now, something that's really important to say about this film though, that is really impressive, is that the film was made for about £100, so a little bit over $100 in US dollars. And yeah, that definitely changed my perspective on it just a little bit. You know, I think it's 100% something you need to take into account when you review a film. This is a lower budget film that was made by people who had a passion for film and literally went out and made a feature film. So in and of itself, that's awesome, and I really gotta commend everybody for going out there and making a movie, because, you know, even though I wasn't crazy about it, I can genuinely see the people that were behind this movie creating something way better if they had a bigger budget. Overall, I wasn't crazy about the story here. A lot of the acting sometimes felt like people acting, and a lot of the dialogue didn't work for me, but I did enjoy Drew Horner, and he really carried the weight of this character throughout the course of the movie. So that's gonna be my thoughts on Polar. I believe you can find it on places like Amazon Prime and some other places you can probably find it online. A big thanks to Drew Horner for reaching out to me and having me check out this movie to review it here on the channel. I'm sorry I wasn't in love with the film, but I did enjoy elements about it, and I think that you were the best part of the movie. Moving on now, we have a movie called Cycles, and this is a movie that actually has not come out yet and will be releasing on February 28th. So depending on when you're watching this, this may or may not already be available to you, and it will be available on Amazon Prime. So yeah, Cycles, February 28th. So this is a film that was made for under £1,000, and again, I just have to commend these filmmakers for going out there and making these films with very little budget. You know, again, it's really important to take that into account when you're reviewing a film, when you're comparing it up against films that are, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars in budget or millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars in budget, and then you can see a smaller film that, you know, is able to maybe, you know, capture a better story from time to time, or just do something really cool and different with a lower budget. And so when it comes to the story of Cycles, this is an interesting one. I was actually reached out to by the director of this film, Oscar Wenman-Hyde, who's also the producer. He also did cinematography and was part of the writing as well. And this film actually only stars two individuals in the main roles, and it's a story of an older brother and a younger brother, as the younger brother is now on move-in day at university. He's going to college for the first time, and he has his older brother dropping him off. This ends up leading to a bit of discomfort about being at college, a bit of worry for the future, and leads to a really heartfelt, real conversation between an older brother and a younger brother. And over the course of the movie, it's only an hour and 7 minutes, we're just hearing this discussion play out between these two family members that know each other, believe they know each other, but truly don't really know the full ins and outs of who these people are, what they've been through, even though they're brothers. They have assumptions on who they are and what they've done, what they like to do, and maybe what their expectations of one another are. But ultimately, over the course of the film, you know, they really start to dive deeper into who each other are, and this brother bond is really what makes this film really, really strong. I was really impressed by this one. I found the dialogue to be really strong. Again, it is a lower budget film, so similar to Polar, similar to this one. The cinematography, not the best. I wasn't crazy on the camera work. There were times where it just kind of felt very cheap. I hate to say it that way, but of course this is a lower budget film, and I just do want to be honest, it does have that feel. There were moments where, depending on the angle that the camera was at, the audio would change a little bit. I was listening to it on my pretty nice sound system, and yeah, there were times where the audio felt real nice and tight and close on the actors' voices, and other times where you could hear the echo of the room depending on the angle as it was changing. So those are some of my biggest negatives when it comes to this film. And you know, there is still that element sometimes with the actors being not big actors, that, you know, there's definitely an element of feeling like they're acting. However, you can definitely tell they rehearsed a lot of their lines consistently throughout this movie, which really makes this movie really strong. This isn't a movie with a bunch of set changes and location changes and costume design and all that. It's simply two brothers having a conversation in a room about their family, about their past, about their history, about what makes them who they are, maybe their desires, maybe the things that have held them back, expectations placed on them, family pressures, and ultimately is about the cycles of life, the cyclical nature of, you know, being born into a family and maybe kind of having to live up to the expectations of those behind you or before you, or whatever the case may be. Or even in the case of this film, maybe having the feeling of the pressure of expectations on you because those before you didn't succeed in their own goals or their own expectations. So ultimately, I felt like this movie told a really human story, and both of these films really did. I really enjoyed the fact that Polar and Cycles do a good job of showing us real people in real situations. It's not a cookie cutter, clean version of real individuals or life. These are movies about people going through very real feelings. These are movies about people who are going through stuff that people go through on a daily basis. So I definitely want to commend those who are part of Polar and those who are part of Cycles. But to wrap up my thoughts on Cycles overall, I did really feel like this was a very strong dialogue heavy film. The movie's only an hour and 7 minutes long. It's not a very long film, and it does a really great job of capturing your attention throughout, specifically through its dialogue. And over the course of the film, even though I wasn't crazy about it at first and there was moments where I felt like it was going to be a little bit cheesy, I think the two guys who play the brothers in this film did a really great job, and over the course of time you can definitely tell they rehearsed these lines to make it feel as natural as possible. And funny enough, they're both named Henry. You have Henry Wilson and Henry Fisk, and I definitely want to praise both of those actors for playing these brothers in this movie. I think they did a really solid job. So that's going to be my thoughts on Polar and Cycles. A big thanks to you guys for watching. If you guys were a part of making this movie and you're watching this, I'm sorry for criticizing the things I criticized, but I was just being honest. And for the things that did work, I do want to praise you guys, and just praise you guys in general for going out there and making a film with your own money and trying to self-finance and, you know, put these films out there and get people to talk about it. So So I'm glad to be talking about both Polar and Cycles, and I appreciate you guys for reaching out to me to talk about these movies. So yeah guys, go ahead and check out these movies. They definitely tell really human stories despite any criticisms that I may have about it, and I definitely look forward to hearing what people have to say about these movies as time goes on. So Polar and Cycles, Polar is already available and Cycles will be available on February 28th, 2022. A big thanks to you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.